So at this point, we're looking at the basic question of colonial occupation. How do you do it? You have the ability to, you have the narrative in your head that makes it worth doing. Um, you've been able to overcome resistance. Then the question is how do you actually do it? And this is what we're looking at here is this question, how to rule effectively and profitably over a foreign subject population. So you need to be effective, um, and you need to do it with the goal of making money. So pause for a quick second. What do you think the best way of doing that is? Some of you may have suggested or thought about just like uh, beating him into submission. Some of you may have considered something that was more um, uh, attractive, of like, oh, come work for us, come do this, we'll listen to you, maybe illusions of democracy. Um, what One of the first methods that was used in the historical record is something called concessionary companies. So imagine if mining asteroids became a thing in 5 years, because of all of the rare earth materials that are available in outer space objects. And who would be the first ones to do that? Would it be NASA? Would it be the government? Or would it be Elon Musk and SpaceX? Well, it'd probably be Elon Musk and SpaceX. Um, and in fact, that's what's happening here. Outer space to us is like Africa or interior of Africa in the 1880s. So, concessionary companies are this transitional phenomenon that existed from roughly 1880 to roughly 1900, really a 20 or 30-year period. And it was an early period in colonialism. What we have is effectively the conquering and ruling by commercial proxy. So you don't have the government of England coming in, or the government of France, or the Portuguese government. You have companies that are Portuguese, or companies that are French. What was interesting about these companies is they operated outside the law. Um, the British government, for example, would give them protection from legal prosecution. So something that normally would be illegal, like murder, would not result in murder charges as a concessionary company. So basically, these companies say, hey, you want us to go into Niger or what's today Zimbabwe? That's really dangerous. We want some guarantees that it's going to be worth the risk that we're going to take on. We're going to take on risk. You need to guarantee things for us. And so one of the guarantees that the colonial states gave these companies was legal immunity. Just to be really clear, these companies are not indigenous companies. These are European companies. These companies also had rights that you normally wouldn't think of a corporation or a company having. They had the right to raise taxes. They had the right to impose customs duties, administer justice, make treaties, and act basically like a government. So the parallel today would be if Nike here in town could raise taxes from people from Beaverton, or could have its own court system, or make treaties with China, for example, or the state of Washington. So these concessionary companies were like states within a state. And this also, as like what we were saying earlier, this is a way for competition to occur against other European countries. Just as we saw with explorers, for example, this is a form of competition. The benefit to this to European peoples is this is private investment that doesn't require taxpayer commitment. So just like if it was NASA, it would require that American taxpayers pay into asteroid mining. And if asteroid mining is unproven, that might be a tough sell with taxpayers. But if Elon Musk wants to do it, sure, whatever. Um, what ends up happening is a lot of these companies, they stake out exclusive claims and political controls, Um, and when it becomes too expensive for the company to control, or the company gets into some sort of hot water, the imperial country takes over. So I'll give you some examples here of concessionary companies. These are just concessionary companies in Africa, and these are their flags, at least the top three are. So we'll look at the bottom one, the Anglo-Belgian Indian Rubber Company, which went by the acronym ABIR, A-B-I-R, Anglo-Belgian Indian Rubber Company. And this rubber company really just exploited Congo, um, and what that led to eventually is public outcry over its business practices that led to over 10 million Congolese being killed. That there's this huge outcry, and the European country, in this case Belgium, steps in and takes over operations. And that happens in a lot of these other cases. So you have this company comes in on their own, and its goal is short-term profits, not sustainable business practices, not a government for the people who live there, but extraction of wealth at the quarter level, at the month-by-month level. And that's not sustainable. And often that leads to rapacious business practices that spiral out of control. Again, greed. I hate to say it, but yeah. Interesting side note, I know some of you look at the so-called Congo Free State in ninth grade, and so maybe you already know this, but this is depicting King Leopold II, of Belgium, who used what's today the Democratic Republic of Congo as his personal piggy bank, and in pursuit of rubber and ivory and other uh, forest products, as they're sometimes called, led to the death and dismemberment of over 10 million Congolese. So when there was international outcry, in part led by the United States, the Belgian government says we're taking over from its own king. But here's the thing. They paid the king for his property. And so King Leopold II made huge sums of money from selling the Congo to the country itself.